There's a new direction at the Knights and directive after a forgettable season.
As a coaching staff, we've slapped a fine on each other. Every time we refer to 07, there's a fine on. We just want to look ahead. We don't want to look back at all.
The coach's words ring true for Wes Nagama, who comes to Newcastle from the Dragons. Apart from undergoing a knee reconstruction in round 11, he's just served periodic detention for a string of traffic offences.
I'm suspended from driving for a while. So I won't be driving for a while. No.
Got your teammates to drive you around?
Yeah, boys have been good.
Nagama's one of 4 imports from St George Illawarra. Danny Wicks is another who eased back into work today.
I have been doing a bit of training in the off-season. Still got a long way to go, and I think Smithy and the team will get me there.
As for the club's existing players, ankle surgery will see halfback Luke Walsh start the off-season late, sitting out training today and due to start running within 6 weeks.
We're expecting everybody will be right for pre-season games.
Adam McIlrick, NBN News. It was anything but a lazy Sunday spent on the Hastings for the 600-odd triathletes there for the Port Macquarie Half Ironman. After the 1.9-kilometre swim, Cohiba's Shane Gibbs emerged first with Boyd Conrick chasing. Conrick admits Port Macquarie's never been a happy hunting ground and the aim was to finish on the podium. He did, coming home third in a race where less than 2 minutes separated the first 4 finishers.
I probably just, faded a little bit, paid for it. I've had a couple of little problems with my calf lately, so I was a little bit short on runs.
Former Muswellbrook professional Darren Beck fell 2 shots short of winning the Queensland PGA on the Gold Coast over the weekend. After a blistering opening round 62, he slipped on the final day to share second place at 21 under. Of the 24 surfboat crews in the Ocean Thunder Series, debutant Dixon Park is in 19th place. Pacific Palms finished the opening round better, just outside the top 10. City continues to dominate country in the Bowls Test Series after a clean sweep in Sydney over the weekend. Jason Pietrazek from Soldiers Point and Swansea's Matthew Bouse were named in the States side for a country tour. And in the 10-pin variety, Edgeworth's Anne-Marie Putney is this week in Russia for the Sports World Cup. The former World Masters champion is one of 2 Aussies at the event. Adam McIlrick, NBN News.
The equine influenza crisis left the Hunter a horse-free zone for Melbourne Cup Day, but a healthy crowd still made it to the International Paceway for an unusual meeting. Male and female fascinators were on show, but this piece of headwear seemed more appropriate as the ship of the desert stole the spotlight.
Well, they're a lot taller and they're a lot bouncier, and the saddle is a lot further back on the camel, so you've got to lean down and hold on.
First-time jockey Leah Reeve Parker saddled up on Sheba for the first race.
Crack a whip to get them to go, they run, and then there's someone to grab them at the other end.
After a crazy start, the girls made it a winning quinella, with Leah and Sheba narrowly beaten by Jessie Morris on Ruby. Much like the horses, some entries are still running. While Efficient may have been first past the post at Flemington, the kids at St Joseph's at the Junction already had the cup. Unlike previous years, this hat parade was heavily influenced by horse flu. Inside the pubs and clubs, once-a-year punters were lapping it up across the region. For some, picking a winner wasn't as important as picking a wine. On the biggest betting day of the year, a broken TAB machine was bad for business, but it probably saved more than a few punters some of their hard-earned. Mitchell Hughes, NBN News.
The Crown alleges 37-year-old William Wayne Spencer planned the robbery of Rick Anson at this Awabba Road flat almost 3 years ago. Prosecutor Trevor Bailey today told a 7-man, 5-woman jury that Spencer recruited Owen Henry Fraser of Gwandolin and Gorican's Curly Wilson to assault Anson, slap him around and take a large amount of money from him. It's further alleged that whilst Fraser and Wilson were in the flat during the early hours of January 11, 2005, that 2 gunshots were heard. Rick Anson was killed by a single shot that hit him in the head. A prosecution witness will tell the trial that when Wilson returned to a getaway vehicle, he was heard to say, "Sorry, I effed up." Whilst the weapon that was used to kill Rick Anson has never been found, the Crown case will rely on ballistic evidence and security footage from a Toronto service station that places William Spencer and another witness in the case near the crime scene on the morning of the incident. Spencer, Fraser and Wilson have pleaded not guilty to murdering Rick Anson. The trial before Justice Rod Howie is expected to last a number of weeks. Gary Blair, NBN News.
Hunter Surf Life Saving boss Rhonda Scruton is fuming. She understands that the council needs more revenue, but is urging them to keep their hands off surf clubs and stop targeting her charity organisation.
I find it odd that they're thinking we could be their cash cow.
The proposal means council will take half the rental profits from the kiosks and 20% of commercial surf club hire. Hunter Surf Life Saving's total rental income from kiosks would also be capped at just $75,000 to be distributed to the 6 Newcastle clubs.
We can't work out why the council's suddenly saying, OK, we take 50% of the rent, you do all the hard work and we're taking it.
That money would normally pay for volunteer training and expensive rescue equipment such as rubber duckies.
Yeah, they're $16,000. Yeah, the jet skis are $25,000. The branch has to supply those.
The council will consider the proposal tonight.
We've got buildings that are in a very harsh environment, right on the sea, that need to be maintained. We need an income stream to do that. Whether it's 50% or 90% or 10% of the income from the kiosks is something we want to negotiate.
Jane Goldsmith, NBN News.
These teenagers are fed up with their peers' behaviour.
The vandalism, the drinking, a lot of kids getting into drugs. There's a lot of violence and tension between kids.
It gives us a bad name why everyone is just out in the streets drinking and vandalism and stuff.
They say the behaviour has resulted in Port Stephens' teenage population being typecast as criminal. The Tomaree High School students are now trying to get this message through to their peers.
Down the long run, it's going to really, really affect your life. If you don't make up to yourself, you might not have another chance.
They say there's a root cause behind the behaviour.
They got nothing else to do in the community, so they go out to the streets and they drink, and they do it on a daily basis. And the worst part about it is the parents aren't stopping them.
But getting their message out is only part of the solution. The teenagers say unless organisations like council come to the party and provide them with more amenities and activities, then residents can expect to see a lot more graffiti and vandalism. Madeline Bond, NBN News.
It's been a busy day at work, the kids are in tow and you've got a headache, so you just want to get in and out as quickly as possible. But the supermarket shelves soon become a blur of products and brands, the choice overwhelming.
It's very hard. It's a hard choice to make, and especially with the kids. You want them to be fed well to start with, so they can make their own and right decisions later.
So which foods should we choose for our kids? Enter dietitian Trent Watson to sort the healthy from the hazardous. Let's start in the cold meat aisle. Should we reach for the old favourite Devon or ham?
Devons or a processed meat are much higher in fat. So here we've got, per 100 grams, we've got 1,000 kilojoules versus 400. So, less than half the amount of energy.
The ham has 3 grams of fat per 100 grams compared to 18 grams of fat in the Devon.
So, good choice. That's for the shopping trolley.
Stop buying Devon.
And what about the type of bread for your child's lunchbox?
They've all got a similar amount of energy. The whole grain's just got a little bit more fibre, B group vitamins, zinc, and all the different nutrients that you need to remain healthy.
We all know an apple a day keeps the doctor away, but how much fruit is recommended?
As long as you're having it every day, that's 2 pieces of fruit, 5 veg. That's the goal.
Snacks can be a challenging aisle. Some muesli bars can provide much needed fibre, but Trent says watch the sugar content in the kilojoule column of the nutritional information.
So if these guys are stocking up on too much energy, it contributes to gaining weight.
Breakfast is the most important meal of the day for kids, but the amount of sugar in some cereals can be an eye-opener.
Total sugar here is 1 gram, where the total sugar is here at 12 grams. So,
Jumps up a fair bit, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
Tomorrow night in this special series, why kids should be water-wise, swapping soft drinks and juices for H2O. Jane Goldsmith, NBN News.
The 40-strong delegation's visit to the Newcastle wool-selling complex allowed them to get up close and personal with fleeces from across the New England and southern Queensland. They represent a number of Chinese textile companies and are on a fact-finding mission as the world's most populous nation aims to secure its future as a fine wool processor.
But China is growing in demand, their processability is increasing, their improvement in the cloth they're producing is also improving, so they are really chasing that Italian market with those better type of products they're producing.
Almost 3,500 bales were on offer to begin Newcastle's 4th sale of the season. The clips being offered by northern New South Wales and southern Queensland wool producers are currently considered among the best in the nation, defying the impacts of drought.
Our wools are still very good, we're still very high for tensile strength, and really for any of the buyers with their best orders, the only place they can fill those orders is in Newcastle.
The high value of the Australian dollar did make its presence felt in the auction room, but there were still some good prices posted. Mick and Carla Cornelli of Gyra on the Northern Tableland selling a bale of 13.9 micron wool for 24,100 cents a kilogram in one of the day's leading results. Gary Blair, NBN News.
The Socceroos' emergence on the world stage in recent years has done wonders for football in Australia. Now the Matildas' success is set to do the same for women's football in the Hunter.
The success of the Matildas at the World Cup has just really emphasised how much we do really need good programs and good leagues.
The new Women's Premier League competition is due to kick off in 2009. A minimum of 6 and a maximum of 8 teams will be admitted, with games to be played on Sundays. To help the fledgling league get off the ground, competition fees will be waived for the first 2 years.
It does look like a winner, I think, to limit the amount of teams to 6 or 8. You only want a few teams in there with the best players.
Currently, the region's top female players are forced to play against male opponents or train together to keep their skills sharp. While this new competition is unlikely to cater for the current crop of Matildas, Salisbury says it will support the development of our future female stars.
It's also there for, some of the players that are ex-Matildas or ex-State League players that still want to play at a competitive high level, because you need those girls to bring the younger ones through.
Mitchell Hughes, NBN News.
But my main goal this year is just to have fun and enjoy my athletics. I've missed out on that for a while now, and I think once I get that back, I'll be running fast.
When I got the Botox injections, I was that emotional that, I was really crying because I never dreamt that, it would happen.
Well, it just increases, our monthly payments on everything. So it's not humongous, but yeah, it's definitely going to have an impact.
We're all a bit strapped these days, so I just think that it's more money out of our pocket.
It doesn't affect me. I'm not paying the house off.
They will have to redefine between their needs and their wants. That's all. It's their spending habits.
No, I think it's people themselves that push it up. They're spending too much money, which they don't have. That is the problem.
It's a grand plan, including a 50-seat restaurant and accommodation, all with breathtaking views. The federal government is investigating whether the project complies with heritage constraints. In February, the developer was told that would take 3 months. He's still waiting.
We've been trying to get this thing through for 6 years. We've gone through the state government, the local government got a DA, and then in September of last year, the federal government stepped in, and we've been spending well over a year with them now.
The federal member for Newcastle is also frustrated.
I spoke to Malcolm Turnbull and said it would be a pity if this one was held up in the election process. Could he activate that as fast as possible? I spoke with his staff. They didn't achieve that, unfortunately.
She says if Labor wins, she'll take it up with the new minister.
I will be demanding that within that 40 days we have a decision.
Liberal candidate Krisha Walker agrees there's merit in the project. Meanwhile, Newcastle business owners say the financial difficulties being experienced by 4 honeysuckle restaurants haven't just been caused by mismanagement. An anonymous restaurateur from the Boardwalk development says customers are constantly complaining about a lack of easy parking in Honeysuckle and believes paid parking is a major deterrent. Jane Goldsmith, NBN News.
Downer EDI at Cardiff is currently in partnership with the New South Wales Government, assembling Sydney's new fleet of train carriages. But it's also struck a deal with Glendale Technology High, giving the school almost $100,000 worth of new computers and sponsoring a program of work experience and scholarships.
The partnership that we've developed with EDI Rail is brilliant because it gives students an opportunity to go to the workforce and find out if that's the career they want. And it really changes the whole way that they look at school, because in their senior years they're doing school, they're doing TAFE, they're having significant work placement as well.
Students from other schools across the Hunter and Central Coast will also be able to take advantage of the arrangement through a program of excursions to Downer EDI.
This is a demonstration of a significant change where the senior secondary school now is much more integrated into the community.
Paul Lobb, NBN News.
Coal-fired power stations could be around for at least another 50 years, so the race is on to invent technologies that achieve a cleaner environmental outcome from burning coal. The goal is to reduce carbon dioxide emissions into the atmosphere by using carbon capture and storage. Scientists at Newcastle's CSIRO headquarters are leading the way, and today the Shadow Minister for Resources and Energy jumped on board.
Today we're announcing a $55 million commitment to the Hunter coal industry as part of our push to get clean coal on stream by 2020.
Labor's promise includes $20 million for the identification of storage sites, $10 million for planning the infrastructure and $25 million to support the CSIRO. Once captured, the CO2 is stored in underground geological structures, such as reservoirs that once held natural gas or even old coal seams. But high-profile scientist and Senate candidate Dr. Karl Kruszelnicki says that concept is a lie.
Well, he's just dead wrong, and if you talk to the CSIRO or any of the other scientists involved, they'll tell you that. The technology's there, the trick is to get it commercially operating.
Coal-fired power stations could be around for at least another 50 years, so the race is on to invent technologies that achieve a cleaner environmental outcome from burning coal. The goal is to reduce carbon dioxide emissions into the atmosphere by using carbon capture and storage. Scientists at Newcastle's CSIRO headquarters are leading the way, and today the Shadow Minister for Resources and Energy jumped on board.
Today we're announcing a $55 million commitment to the Hunter coal industry as part of our push to get clean coal on stream by 2020.
Labor's promise includes $20 million for the identification of storage sites, $10 million for planning the infrastructure and $25 million to support the CSIRO. Once captured, the CO2 is stored in underground geological structures, such as reservoirs that once held natural gas or even old coal seams. But high-profile scientist and Senate candidate Dr. Karl Kruszelnicki says that concept is a lie.
Well, he's just dead wrong, and if you talk to the CSIRO or any of the other scientists involved, they'll tell you that. The technology's there, the trick is to get it commercially operating.
A service of thanksgiving for those who bring hope and comfort to others. Their hands blessed, the Samaritans volunteers are readying to put them to work, preparing for a busy Christmas period.
We already help about 1,000 families every month, and we'll get a few extra over Christmas.
This year, the Samaritans are asking locals to be an angel and donate cash, gifts or food, contributions which will help with hampers and the Christmas lunch in the park. Seth Cheval says the Samaritan services have been pushed since the June flood, many affected families still in need of help. For them and others, this is a particularly difficult time.
They're struggling with increasing rental costs, with increasing costs of food and fuel, and we just need to recognise that those people are battling still.
The Samaritans have set a fundraising target of $135,000, praying it can be achieved so that no family misses out.
Surf clubs in New South Wales can only sell alcohol at 26 functions a year and for a limited time to members on Sundays. But reforms announced this week should allow clubs to serve drinks virtually whenever they want.
And that is as such a wonderful sideline for us. Everyone has been saying to me for years, why aren't you like Queensland?
But the state government says that doesn't mean it'll be open slather.
The new legislation will not turn surf clubs into quasi or de facto nightclubs or pubs or things like that. It's not going to increase the supply of alcohol in any way. It'll just change the way it's distributed.
The new laws will allow clubs to start making a small profit to help pay for new rescue equipment, training and improvements to the interiors of the public buildings they inhabit.
But it does provide an opportunity for surf clubs and indeed sporting clubs and perhaps some of the theatre groups to be able to find a new income stream. And I think that's good.
Paul Lobb, NBN News.
Here's a quick quiz. Take 3 glasses, one filled with cola, one with orange juice and the third with water. Now, how many teaspoons of sugar are in each 250ml glass? Well, the answer is quite alarming. The cola has 6 teaspoons of sugar, and while the juice does provide some benefits, it still contains 4 teaspoons of sugar.
Some juices do contain vitamin C, which is good for kids, but fruit is a better way of getting that.
H2O obviously has no sugar at all and is the best way to quench your thirst and avoid unneeded kilojoules.
Water doesn't have any of the artificial flavourings or colourings, and importantly it doesn't have the energy that's contained in soft drinks.
Schools are now encouraging students to drink more water. The Junction Public School in Newcastle is setting a good example with frequent water and fruit breaks for students.
Well, it really is important to reinforce good nutrition and good habits, and it is also good to have a break just to refresh and then get back and be more productive in your work.
So I find it much easier to pay attention because I don't have to worry about being thirsty or hungry, etc., etc.
Drinking water doesn't just help to make healthy young bodies, it's also important for strong, healthy teeth. Dental surgeon Peter King knows all too well the benefits of water over sugary drinks, such as cordial or juice.
Well, pretty well any drink that's not water shouldn't be consumed by a child, other than perhaps during a breakfast event or during dinner. But between meals, they really need to choose water.
Dr King says from the late 60s to the early 90s there was a decrease in tooth decay in children, but for the past 10 years that's been on the rise. He says that's closely related to teeth being overexposed to sugary drinks and foods.
One of the really serious effects of juice is when it's put into a bottle of an infant and they're drinking the bottle and consuming the juice over a slow period for a long time. That'll cause a lot of dental caries or dental tooth decay.
Tomorrow night we visit a family who has made some major adjustments in the kitchen and we reveal the secrets to their success. Jane Goldsmith, NBN News.
Andrew Johns hasn't always been the most cooperative interview subject, but since those frank admissions on the Footy Show back in August, the erratic moods seem to have subsided, revealing a man reborn. The new Joey is happier, more humble, enjoying life as a normal human being.
There's a lot of things I kept secret for so many years, and I just felt that it created so much guilt for myself and destroyed all your self-confidence. So I just needed to get it out there and, I suppose, tell the truth.
Andrew says working on his recently released autobiography, The Two of Me, was a therapeutic experience. The book chronicles the champion halfback's rise to the top of the rugby league stratosphere and his struggle with drugs, alcohol and bipolar disorder.
The humiliation I've caused myself and my family, I'm so ashamed of that, but I've turned my life around and I'm building those bridges back again.
The next chapter of his life will take him out of the city where he carved his incredible career, and Andrew says he's ready to move on from the fishbowl that is Newcastle.
I've got to move to Sydney because of work reasons, but I'll still have a unit here where I'll spend a couple of days a week, so maybe moving to a quieter area where everyone doesn't know where to throw eggs at my house might help.
The drug revelations don't seem to have tarnished his reputation in Joey Heartland, with fans still as desperate as ever for a chance to meet their hero.
We're his #1 fans. We're from Cessnock. We've loved Andrew since he's been a little top playing football. We just adore him.
He's a very honest by coming out and saying what he has done, and I'll give him credit for that. We just love him just the same. He's still our hero.
It's a special place. It'll always be home for me, and I dare say in the future I'll move back.
Jessica Phyllis, NBN News.
Light showers over the Vintage have come at the right time, making the past 71 course a touch greener, yet nowhere near easier.
It's tough. It's going to be one of the tougher courses on the Von Night Tour, and when I played here, the course wasn't in great shape, but this week it's beautiful.
The 2 9s I think are quite different from front to back, so I think there'll be some pretty interesting stuff out over there the next 4 days.
The New South Wales Open is the last event on the Von Night Tour and a final chance for players to secure their Australian Tour card.
I was doing it 2 years ago and I'm where I am now, which is good, so hopefully they can do that too.
The Open is more of a warm-up to summer for the 23-year-old who's not long returned from the American Tour, where he says his short game let him down.
Yeah, I went down and seen my coach in Melbourne about a week ago and we worked on a bit of technique stuff with putting and just generally trying to get things back on track. It's probably going to take a couple of weeks.
Just in time for the Australian events in which he'll be joined by Charlestown's James Nitties. That is, of course, if his clubs get here, with the 25-year-old only returning from the US yesterday.
It doesn't help teeing it up without a golf club in your hand. So, but no, I think they're getting late tonight. So, I mean, I've played here a couple of years ago, so it should be all good.
Adam McIlwright, NBN News. In 1995, it was all about taking top-grade rugby league out west, an experiment that would go on to last for 3 years. A decade on and the Reds are making a resurgence, for now in the New South Wales competition, and 2 Lakes United players will be among the first 13.
Just the opportunity just to start afresh and try and help these young kids out over there and maybe build something, just to know that we're part of it when it first kicked off again, that hopefully they can have a side in the competition in a few years in the NRL.
We've got a family over there. I was born and raised over there, so it's good to head back there and see what it's changed now, and the football's still good over there from what I've been told.
Both Michael Small and Joel Rawlins have signed 1-year deals, and both have been part of the Seagulls' last 2 premiership campaigns. Rawlins was a 3-try hero for Lakes in their win over Wyong in September.
It's kind of strange to leave when you're going for a hat-trick, which is a rare feat in Newcastle Rugby League, but as I said, the opportunity arose and we couldn't really knock it back.
The travel between Sydney, the Central Coast and Perth will take some getting used to, as will their new roles.
Playing in the forwards, I had blokes like Adam McEwen and Dan Hagan sort of leading the way, and I sort of chimed in every now and then. But going over and playing with the Reds, it's going to be a case of the younger blokes are going to be sort of looking up to me.
The aim is to be in the NRL by 2011. Adam McIlwright, NBN News.
According to locals, the worst thing about Muswellbrook's main street is the endless parade of noisy, smelly trucks. At the moment, locals can only dream about what life would be like with all the New England highway traffic taken out of town.
Well, you might be able to sit outside and have a cup of coffee like you can in Denman and Scone without the smell of trucks and, when they do something like the cows and that coming down the road.
Trade Minister Warren Truss made the election promise today alongside the Nationals candidate for Hunter, Beth Black.
It'll take the trucks out of the business centre of Muswellbrook and ensure that the people can shop in comfort and enjoy their town without the disruption of the through traffic.
The 8-kilometre bypass would branch off the New England Highway at Muscle Creek Road and pass to the east of the town.
Most people that will leave or use the bypass would not stop in Muswellbrook anyway, because it's difficult to find a park, it's unpleasant in the main street, and we don't believe that it will damage business at all. We believe it will improve business.
Meantime, members of the Link or Sink group held a protest today calling on the state and federal governments to fund the F3 extension from Seahampton to Branxton. Paul Lobb, NBN News.
Life is anything but easy for the Leokos family from Hamilton North. Their uninsured home was badly damaged during the long weekend storms, and finding money for repairs has been difficult with just the one income and 4 mouths to feed.
I'm working as much as I can, but there's only so much you can do,
The kitchen has got to be done. At the moment we just can't afford it, so it's going to stay the way it is till such time as we can afford it.
12-year-old Nicole and 15-year-old Callie-Anne have taken up a paper run to try and save some money for Christmas presents. The budget's tight, which is why the family says it couldn't afford insurance in the first place.
Basically, we just didn't have the money at the time to do the insurance. So we thought it was just something that could wait, but we were wrong.
The Hunter Valley Research Foundation says it's a situation echoed across the region. Of the more than 1,600 households it surveyed, 43% were affected by the floods.
Of those that received some form of property damage, it would appear that only 40% were covered by their insurances.
There is still some assistance available through the Samaritans, Salvation Army and St Vincent de Paul Society. Jessica Phillis, NBN News. Emlyn Davies opened Davies Shoes at Curry Curry in 1927. The business expanded to include a Mayfield branch in 1939, and it's in that suburb where Emlyn's son Ivor still runs the family store. The economy and our spending habits have certainly changed in those 8 decades, and so has the way people dress their feet.
Shoes have gone from being a utility product to being a fashion product, and not necessarily has to be a stiletto to be fashionable.
In an age where department stores are taking on mammoth proportions and online shopping is gaining popularity, Ivor says the secret to the success of the family business is all in the service.
We have a passion for the product. I love people, and I'm sure that's portrayed in our service to the community.
It seems the shoe well and truly fits. Jessica Phillis, NBN News.
Leanne Lynch and her son Sam from Newcastle were among 165 families recruited for a university study. They've since made some major adjustments in the kitchen, and tonight we reveal the secrets to their success.
Researchers randomly split the families into 3 groups. The first to solely educate parents about better nutrition, the second focusing on physical activity, while the third combined both.
The parents were given practical advice, taught about how to read nutritional information labels, educated about serving sizes and encouraged to plan meals.
So instead of having a lot of those quick meals where you thought, oh, this was a good meal and it was just laden with kilojoules, we've gone back to a very, very basic diet of like fruit, vegetables, meats.
And just 2 years into the study, the families are reporting positive changes, particularly those in the study who combined improved nutrition with physical activity.
Enormous improvements. He eats many more foods, he will try foods, he does many more different forms of exercise than he did before. A huge thing for us now is he rides his bike, so most afternoons he's outside riding his bike.
We had lots of anecdotal reports from the parents about how it's actually made them feel better and actually cope better with school and participating in sport in particular.
And while we can't all be involved in this study, we can benefit from Leanne's success.
I think the secret is go back and talk to your mother and father and go back to the food that we used to eat when we were children and go back to those basic things again. And I think if you go very natural and eat lots of fruit, lots of vegetables, milk, cheese, it will work. And just make sure that instead of letting them play the PlayStation inside, they're outside playing.
Tomorrow night, the fifth and final part to this special series, how to motivate kids and get them on the move, and some expert advice about how to fill your child's Christmas stocking. Jane Goldsmith, NBN News.
The 1-0 loss to Sydney could prove to be a perfect mid-season wake-up call.
The training sessions have been sharp. I think the boys are really wanting to put to rest last week's loss and come out with all guns firing.
Adam Griffiths is missing in defence, but the backline will be boosted by the return of Matt Thompson and Stephen Labert. Like Sydney last week, Perth comes to town sporting a new coach and a desire for a mid-season revival. The Jets know all about those, but they won't be sharing the formula.
Anything less than 3 points on Friday night will be looked as a failure.
It is the same 11 or the same probably 14, 15 that comes out for Perth every week, and we just don't want them to start this week with their winning run.
No goals against Sydney saw training sessions focused on attack. One of the team's main weapons, striker Mark Bridge, still found reason to smile today, despite ongoing contract negotiations.
Spoke with Bridgie this morning and he's fine. He just wants to do the best he can with Newcastle.
As the Jets prepare for wet weather football, the club is doing the same. If rain persists, fans will once again be moved to the upper tier of the Eastern Grandstand. Meanwhile, it's also been announced a Jets women's team will face a Sydney FC women's squad before Newcastle's last home game this year. The Jets squad will contain several of our local Matildas. Mitchell Hughes, NBN News. His growing reputation now has potential opponents throwing in the towel before the opening bell. Daniel Armand was preparing for a much-anticipated rematch with Jamie Withers, but when his old foe pulled out, it seemed the most intimidating fighter Armand was likely to face was the man in the mirror, until a new challenger emerged.
Pretty disappointed about it, but the bottom line is I've got to fight, and that's the main thing. You know, I don't really care who's in the other corner as long as I get to fight.
The Cruiserweight champion will face Super Cruiserweight title holder Costa Chondros, a seasoned professional from Melbourne.
Yeah, I've seen him fight before, and like I said, he's very tough, he's aggressive, big puncher, and yeah, he's very dangerous.
The non-title fight will make boxing history in Australia, marking the first time two title holders have changed their weight for a bout. Armand says he was already planning to step up a division early next year before making his mark overseas.
We'll just have to see how this fight goes first, and then we'll sit down and talk about it, put the feelers out, see what opportunities we can get and see what happens.
The bout takes place at Newcastle Panthers next Friday. Mitchell Hughes, NBN News.
Little Matthew was released from the emergency ward this morning and was soon back to his boisterous self. His quick recovery bringing much relief after yesterday's scare when he fell unconscious.
He must have ingested some, I don't know how many, and within 10 to 15 minutes he was severely affected by it. It was very, very, very frightening because it just felt so helpless.
Matthew swallowed several bindees which belonged to his sister. His parents knew about the recall. They thought they'd disposed of all the beads.
I'd actually taken them off Caitlin on, I think it was Tuesday when the first warning went out. Right. And we'd packed them up, but these were ones that had been made up and they're actually in a separate part of the house.
We're still at a loss to know how a toxin or a poison like this got into an apparently harmless children's toy.
The beads contain a chemical that, when ingested, converts into the toxic illegal drug Fantasy.
In small doses it can cause nausea and vomiting. In larger doses it can lead to drowsiness and even coma. Clearly we need to get those beads well away from children. We don't want any tragedies.
Jane Goldsmith, NBN News.
According to locals, gangs of young thugs are the worst they've ever been in Cessnock, and they're making life hell for some business owners.
I've been threatened to be stabbed, I've been threatened to be shot. They threw beer bottles at me. They threatened to come back that night and burn the shop down.
After 12 years running the local cinema and pizza restaurant, the Genitsakis family is on the verge of closing down and getting out, especially after a vicious attack on John's neighbour that he believes was meant for him.
In a case of mistaken identity, they thought it was me. It really does make you think twice about walking out at night.
Ross Miles was bashed and left unconscious. He can't speak because his jaw is wired, but believes we need more police and tougher laws. The police minister was in the region today unveiling a new van, which he says is a mobile police station. He also says there's no problem with police numbers.
The whole of the Lower Hunter Area Command is currently overstrength.
5 police officers at night is ridiculous in an area the size of a European country.
Until he decides whether to stay or go, John is watching his back. Paul Lobb, NBN News.
The plan to link the F3 to the New England Highway dates back to 1991. The longer the different levels of government squabble over who should fork out what, the costlier the project gets. Today, Federal Roads Minister Jim Lloyd said a re-elected coalition would invest a total of $887 million in the project under the AusLink 2 program.
The money is available now, and I see absolutely no reason why we can't start this project, start construction by 2009.
Joel Fitzgibbon was quick to say that Labor would match the contribution, but there is still the matter of the state government's 20% share. New South Wales Roads Minister Eric Roosendahl would not commit the funding today, saying 2 weeks out from an election, John Howard has suddenly discovered Hunter roads. Bob Baldwin was also on the roads bandwagon, announcing $20 million for local projects, including $12 million to introduce passing lanes on the Buckets Way and $5 million for the Fingal Bay Link Road.
So it can get underway, that we can alleviate the traffic problems, reduce the congestion and turn it back into the holiday town it's become rather than a parking station.
Jessica Phyllis, NBN News.
According to restaurant owner Mark Seary, Honeysuckle is a hive of activity and business is thriving. He has 60 functions booked in for the next 6 weeks and is experiencing consistent growth, up 20% each year.
We've been here 3 years now. We celebrated our 3rd birthday, and it's just a wonderful spot to work, and there's a lot of people down here. We serve over 2,000 people a week.
And after just 1 year at Honeysuckle, salon owner Julie McKenzie is also enjoying success. She says her client base has almost doubled.
We had a business elsewhere in Newcastle. We're up about 40%
from this time last year, so I can't complain about that.
Honeysuckle business operators say the financial difficulties experienced by one owner should not tarnish the rest, particularly with several new businesses opening up.
It definitely isn't all the restaurants. Unfortunately, one operator came into trouble with, they own 4 of the restaurants along the waterfront here.
And they believe parking isn't a problem.
Any inner city area, whether it's Cooks Hill, Beaumont Street, Balmain, inner city Sydney, there is parking issues because of the sheer number of people that would like to be down here and the popularity of the areas.
Jane Goldsmith, NBN News. It's a typical Sunday morning and thousands of children up and down the coast are enjoying the sun, surf and sand. Being active doesn't have to mean slogging it out on a football field, in a gym or on a netball court. There are plenty of activities which motivate kids and get them on the move. Children need at least an hour of physical activity per day. Surf life saving, little athletics and other team sports can be a fun way to kickstart your kids into action.
Not only having fun and getting fit and making great friends as well, but you're also helping the community by saving lives.
And here the focus isn't just on the champions.
They don't even record the results here. It is about just getting in, participating, making sure you know how to swim, making sure you know how to run on the beach.
Like adults, kids can maintain a healthy weight by balancing the amount of energy going into their body with the energy being used. According to dietitians, a medium serve of hot chips equates to 1 hour and 40 minutes walking or 57 minutes of running, while it would take almost 2 hours to walk off a medium chocolate bar. And with Christmas just around the corner, it's a good time to take a look at the gifts we choose for our children. Instead of reaching for the latest computer game or doll, experts are urging parents to fill their children's Christmas stockings with active toys, such as bats, balls and bodyboards.
And I know kids all want the latest, games and computer games, but really I would throw them out basically. You get a lot more toys that are active toys for the price of one computer game.
For more information and advice, please go to goodforkids.nsw.gov.au or call 1300 657 197 or log on to nbntv.com.au where we will stream all of the stories from this special 5-part series. Jane Goldsmith, NBN News.
It wasn't all that long ago the region was crying out for rain, and so far the New South Wales Golf Open has been the ultimate drought breaker. Ewan Porter didn't mind. One of the country's brightest talents, he's endured a difficult year, but sits even par and into the weekend rounds.
To be honest, I've had the shanks the last 2 months, and I'm not supposed to say that, but I haven't hit one in 2 days, and my putters saved me. I haven't played really well, but I'm happy with the score I'm at.
The weather was as unpredictable as James Nitty's round. 9 over at one stage, he picked up 7 strokes before eventually finishing 4 over. Fresh from the US PGA Tour, Jared Lyle is 5 strokes better off at 1 under par, while Nick Flanagan is hoping to correct a few minor dramas with his game before the big Australian tournaments.
I hit the ball very average yesterday and kind of got away with a lot of it. Finished 2 over, but hopefully a couple under par today and kind of keep myself there and hopefully have a good weekend.
Returning home after a highly successful year in America, where he won 3 tournaments to win an automatic promotion onto the US PGA, he was among several afternoon groups affected by today's poor weather. Teeing up with defending New South Wales Open champion Rick Kulaks and former tennis ace turned golf pro Scott Draper, the trio got only as far as their first green before striking trouble. Play was halted for 90 minutes as sections of the course became unplayable. Those who don't complete their rounds today face an early start tomorrow. Coach Gary Van Egmond was in 2 minds until late today, but he's elected to leave the A-League's most expensive bench player, Mario Jardel, on the reserves list for yet another week. He's opted to promote striker Scott Tunbridge into the starting side after an impressive debut late in the match last week. His promotion coming only a month after he was told he could look elsewhere for a club. Tunbridge's greater mobility appears to have been the key in the decision, with Jardell's time in starting team exile now stretching to 6 weeks. The side has lost Adam Griffiths to suspension, with Paul Kohler recalled to the midfield. Meanwhile, Stu Mishalik's appendix operation has also cost him a spot in the Ollie Roos match in Gosford next week. Set to miss another club game tonight, the Australian midfielder was ruled out of the match against Iraq. Mark Bridge retains his spot in the under-23s team, while former Newcastle junior Nigel Boogaard, who plays with the Central Coast Mariners these days, has been included. Meanwhile, young Newcastle Jets player Jason Hoffman was in the victorious Australian under-20s team, which beat Vietnam in their Asian Cup qualification match overnight.
Sun shining, another rally, and let's get on with it. So I think the podium's definitely a real possibility here. The cars have tested extremely well. Had a test on Wednesday and found some more speed.
These posters, coasters and pocket-sized timetables are aimed to increase patronage of Newcastle's late-night bus services.
The information campaign is very much about encouraging people to use public transport. When they're finished drinking, get out of the inner city.
The night owl services began last weekend, but a lack of promotion saw them hardly used. In fact, of the thousands of people out on the town, only around 800 got home on a bus. It's hoped a $15,000 advertising campaign launched this weekend will change that. Licensees say they're doing their bit to raise awareness of the services.
After 3 o'clock we can have 100, 200 people out the front of the venue waiting to get home, and they're waiting for over an hour at times. So this initiative is great and will definitely target the late night transport issue.
However, the campaign isn't expected to have an immediate impact.
To be honest, expect it to take about a month for people to get used to the services.
But the new buses alone won't be enough to solve the city's lack of public transport.
I think one thing we do need to look at is to try and get more late night taxis operating over the weekend.
Madeline Bond, NBN News.
There wasn't much to be said at the Jets' recovery session today, with players largely stunned by a result no one saw coming. For the coach, it only confirmed what he's thought for a while.
We're definitely looking to try and freshen the group up and bring someone else in, but obviously that's going to mean someone moving outside the group.
Van Egmond has already told Scott Tunbridge he can look elsewhere. His first starting spot last night lasted just 35 minutes. No guesses for what the coach thought. And his mood only got worse after this at the back. Andrew Durante with no place to hide as Perth took a lead which should really have been doubled before half-time. Joel Griffiths levelled the ledger only minutes into the second half. It wasn't a bad setup either as Adam Dapuzzo threaded through for Griffiths to slot home his 5th goal of the season. Celebrations not even a minute old, and Perth was back in the lead. The most expensive bench player in the competition, Mario Jardel, watched a rare chance slide by, while no one dared look at the other end. Nikita Rukiavista with a double as Perth ended a run of 18 games without a win.